What is going on, Bills Mafia? Happy Saturday night to you all. It is the August 16th edition of Billsology. I am Dave Myers, co-founder of Built in Buffalo. That is not 𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐵. That is Peter Dibiasi. You guys, if you've been following the brand for a while, you know who that guy is. Peter, what's going on, brother? How you been, man? Good to see you.
I'm good. It's been too long. It was nice catching up with you. Off camera. I guess it was on camera, but not being live. But no, yeah, it's been a long time. Happy to be back, and I'm definitely not 𝐾𝐸. Don't really look like 𝐾𝐸.
I don't think anybody would mistake you guys for each other. That's for sure. But
Probably
glad to
not.
have Peter. I hit up Peter this week, seeing if he'd jump on. 𝐾𝐸's on vacation. He will be back next week, so we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming. But my guy Peter, I've known Peter for quite a while. We have a great relationship. He loves the Bills. I love the Bills. So we're going to talk about the Bills. A lot of stuff going on this week. Obviously, the Bills had a joint practice with the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about if the starters for the Bills should be playing tomorrow. I know Peter. Before we came live, like we were getting into the discussion, I had to tell him to hold off because it was going to be a good discussion for the masses here. We're going to talk about wide receivers. I think that's a hot button with everybody right now. Like, are the Bills going to keep six? If they do keep six, who's that sixth guy? And then I guess if we have time, since the Bills are playing the Ravens to open the season, the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen debate has come up once again on social media, and it's not been driven, I don't think, by Bills Mafia. It's been driven by all the Ravens fans. So if we have time, we can touch base on that. Obviously, we'll take your questions and comments if they come through. Again, if you're watching this live, please smash that like button. Wherever you're watching this, please share it. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications and also subscribe to our channel. All right. So the hot topic, McDermott had a presser yesterday, and unless I've been under a rock for the last few hours, I haven't seen if he's announced if the starters are going to play or not. So I posed the question to Peter. I want his insight on this. Like, should the Bills starters play? Which starters should play and for how long? What's your take on that, Peter?
Yeah, we were talking about it off air. I don't know if it's like a yes, like a strictly like yes or no like question. Like, yes, the starter should play. No, the starter should not play. I think it's like, and I mentioned this, if there's a player that's dealing with like a nagging injury, right? It's been in and out of practice. Like 𝐷eon Dawkins, I know he was a full participant on Friday's practice, but he was out a couple of days with the flared up back. Like, he is someone that you probably should keep out. Like Ed Oliver's a guy that probably doesn't need to play. Maybe James Cook, because was kind of holding in, but he knows the system. He knows Josh. Like, he's a guy that could sit out. Obviously, Khalil Shakir is not going to play. You could keep out like a Christian Benford. Like, the key guys you can keep out depending on where they are. The biggest question, and Dave, you and I were talking about this, and someone mentioned about someone in the comments that Josh Allen should definitely not play. He's the biggest question, and you and I don't know if we disagreed on it, but we were basically in the sense of, if he plays, what is it going to look like? Because it's probably going to look like one, maybe two, and two possessions might be pushing it. And if it is just one possession, it's going to be very vanilla. And if it's not the full starting offensive line, if they do hold 𝐷eon Dawkins out, do you want to back up left tackle? And nothing against Ryan Vandermark, but he's not 𝐷eon Dawkins. Do you want him blocking for Josh Allen for even just one series in a meaningless preseason game? So I would like to see Josh Allen out there. I know you would like to see Elijah Moore out there. I would like to see Curtis Samuel out there. I think it depends on where the player is in their health right now, injury-wise. And secondly, are you doing enough to protect players that are going to play, etc. if 𝐷eon Dawkins is playing left tackle and Josh Allen's the quarterback?
Yeah, and I think too, like, so to kind of go down the rabbit hole of what you were talking about with the wide receivers and whatnot, and we'll talk more in depth on those guys here in a minute. But like, I think last week, and you made a really valid point when we were talking off air. Like, I want to see the receivers get a little bit of reps in with Josh. Like, I want to see the Elijah Moores. I want to see Joshua Palmer. I want to see if Curtis Samuel's going to actually play. I want to see if there's building some chemistry, even with Dalton Kincaid. Like, I want to see if that's kind of progressing. I understand it's a risk reward type deal. Like, the reward would be, yes, let's get reps in active game. But also the risk is we can't have any more substantial injuries. We've already seen this offseason, this training camp, the Bills injury list is already getting very muddied. And I feel like if McDermott and the rest of the staff can kind of limit the injuries from now until the start of the season, because again, every season, I feel like once we hit the home stretch or even into the postseason, the Bills have some lingering injuries, some issues that cause the team not to be at full strength. So it's a double-edged sword because, like you said, I don't need to see James Cook. I understand he missed a few days of practice with the hold in that he had, but it's James Cook. Like, the guy is the focal running back, the focal point of the running game. Like, we all know what he can and can't do. We all know, what the offensive line can do. So if you put Josh Allen out there with not the 5 starters he's going to start the season with, like, what could happen, right? So I don't know. What if you lean more into it, like more deeply into it, like I want to see Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp. I want to see guys out there. I want to see Tre'Davious White with Christian Benford. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. From all accounts, Matt Milano's looked great. Yeah. Obviously, he looked fairly decent in the limited snaps he had against the Giants, and I heard he was playing really well against the Bears in that joint scrimmage. So, of those groups, the offensive line, defensive line, the secondary, things like that. What do you want to see? So you said, like, we talk about starters playing. We can't say all the starters, yes, but like, which starters in particular are you looking to watch to kind of see if there's been some growth, if there's been some progression and stuff like that?
You mentioned it. It's the safety room, and I think that's probably everyone's biggest, maybe outside of the health and production of CB2, whatever that cornerback 2, if it's Trey White, if it's Dane Jackson, if it's Maxwell Harrison when he comes back. Like, that's obviously a major question, and it won't be answered until Harrison comes back. I would say it's the safety room because I like Taylor Rapp. I think he's a very talented safety, and I think he does a lot of things well. His biggest problem is that he likes to throw his body around like it's nobody's business, and he's not on the field at all times.
Dude,
right?
I got ridiculed because I called him a crash test dummy. I'm like, I didn't call him a dummy. I said he's a crash test dummy. Like, dude just doesn't, he puts his body at harm all the time.
Look, it's not my body, and I'm not asking him to. I respect what he does, but I would also like him to be on the field in a playoff game because 100%. I think he's talented enough to start for a team that can go to a Super Bowl. I really do. Cole Bishop is interesting because, and Bobby Babbage has talked about like him not thinking as much. And like year one was a lot of trying to not make mistakes and trying to be in the right spot at the right time. And like, I'm on the field. I don't want to F up. So I'm not so I get taken off the field. Right. When you kind of play like that, it's not always going to be the most productive way to play. So I think Cole Bishop in year 2, and they even talked, Ray Davis even talked about that on Hard Knocks this past week about how like year 2 is so different than year 1. Year 1, you're just trying not to like, you're not trying to mess up. You're just trying to be on the field, especially if you're Ray Davis. Obviously was a 4th-round pick, but 2nd-round pick in Cole Bishop. The biggest thing for him and Rapp is they've dealt with injuries this camp too. Like, right. I would love to see them together, but is that even an option? And I don't even know where their injury status is at the moment, because there's so many injuries, and if you try to keep track of it, it's your brain's going to spiral and stress you out in August. But I would like to see what Rapp and Bishop can do, because I know what DeMar Hamlin can do, the highs and the lows of DeMar Hamlin. We've seen a lot of DeMar Hamlin over the last couple of years. I want to see what Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop can do, because if Rapp stays healthy and Cole Bishop pops to the player that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbage think he can in year 2, then the safety room goes from a question mark to, I think, a pretty, not obviously like a top 5 unit, top 10 unit in football, but not a unit where you're watching a game, you're like, oh, here you go. The safety unit struggling again, where they're solid enough to not be a problem for this team.
Yeah, I think with that being McDermott's like backbone of
secondary,
how I don't want to say that's how he built this defense, but we always had, no pun intended, safety blanket with Poyer and Hyde, right? Yeah. We didn't have to worry.
Yeah.
So when now you have to actually think about it, like what's going on back there. My biggest thing is with Taylor Rapp, and you sort of touched on it, is once we get to the postseason, I want a healthy Taylor Rapp. We know what he can do. We need a healthy Taylor Rapp, and with the concussion history and some other things like that. My biggest concern coming into this offseason was the safety room, and I was concerned for Cole Bishop. He seemed to be trending in the upward direction towards the end of the year. It seemed like the game was slowing down a little bit for him, and it seemed like he was putting himself in the right position and things like that. Because I said last week with Akeem, I said, and this is not a knock on DeMar Hamlin, but I do not want to watch this team with this championship window. I don't want to say window, but the championship caliber roster and all the expectations that we have, where DeMar Hamlin is starting meaningful games for the Buffalo Bills. Now, if there's an injury, fine. I understand we have to use depth, and that's, again, not a knock on DeMar Hamlin. I think he is what he is. We know what his ceiling is. He's an extremely good depth player that knows the scheme, that if you need him to play in a pinch, he can. And he's serviceable for a game or two or a quarter or whatever it is.
Like Cam Lewis. They're solid and they get the job done when they need to.
Exactly. And I got so much shit about Cam Lewis because I always say that Cam Lewis is always going to be on this roster. For whatever reason, he's always going to be on the roster. McDermott loves him. Bean loves him. He's flexible. He can play multiple positions. He's ultimately Taron Johnson, if you want to say he's Taron Johnson's backup, sort of, depending on how they're rolling out the defense. But that's you bring up Cam Lewis, and that's a really good maybe kind of like we can turn this into, what about a Jordan Hancock? Do you think that he could replace a Cam Lewis? From all accounts, he's been doing a little bit of everything. He's been playing backup safety. He's been playing backup nickel. He obviously can play corner. So what's your thoughts? Do you think that this might be the year that maybe Cam Lewis doesn't make the 53? And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but the Bills drafted a whole bunch of corners and DBs. So what's your thoughts overall on how the Bills have structured the DB room? Obviously Dorian Strong, stuff like that.
Yeah. Before, I just want to not clear something up, but Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp were both limited on Friday in the joint practice. So if anybody's wondering in the comment section, Matt Perino, credit to Matt Perino, he tweeted.
But it did look like, from what I saw, it looked like they were playing 11 on 11.
Limited is a very broad term, but they practiced. In what capacity? We weren't there. They were not out. They were not out. I can tell you that. Cam Lewis was actually out with the calf injury. To bring him, look, I don't know if this is a Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane MO, and a lot of people that are anti-Sean McDermott will probably say it's an MO of him not always trusting rookies at times, right? And especially in certain positions. I like Jordan Hancock, and everything I've read, and I think everything I've read of Jordan Hancock has been that he's been positive, right? It seems really tough to take Cam Lewis off this roster. But could you have both on the roster? Could Cam Lewis be your fourth safety and then your backup nickel corner? And could Jordan Hancock be like your backup safety, backup nickel corner? Like, I think you could make, I don't know how many DBs they usually keep off the top of my head, but you definitely could make it work. I would love to keep Jordan Hancock on this 53-man roster. I don't know if he has an impact role in year one. He probably doesn't. But if you think you can keep both, I think next year is probably the better year to have, not better year to have this conversation, but next year's probably the year where Cam Lewis is probably no longer a Buffalo Bill and Jordan Hancock kind of takes that role probably a little cheaper, all that kind of fun stuff, and you give it to a younger guy. I would not shocked because we're talking about a backup nickel corner and backup safeties here. We're not talking about the starting cornerback position and starting safety position. But don't you feel like it would be really, not shocking, but interesting that they would move off Cam Lewis for Jordan Hancock? Like, I feel like that just doesn't fit what the Bills have done and what Sean McDermott likes to do.
Like, I hear you, but it's also confusing sometimes to try to figure out Brandon Beane's MO as far as what we need now and what we need next year and into the future. Because if you look at how the draft went this year, it was all about the future. It was all about, we're going to just retool everything because we struggle with defense. No matter what, when it's crunch time, defensively, we've been let down. And I'm sure he heard the rumblings from everybody and, all his scouts and everything. So how they attacked the cornerback position, to me, says that they're trying to move on from some of the parts that they've already had. Like last year, we had that huge transition before the season when we obviously Hyde wasn't going to come back and play. Poyer was gone. They released Tre'Davious White. Like, they got rid of Mitch Morse. Like, they went totally youth movement. We're moving into the future. We got to get younger. We got to get cheaper, because you're going to have to think too, once these Josh Allen contract years hit, like, they're going to have to rely a lot more on draft picks. It's the way it is. Plus, with all the 6 restructures or extensions, I should say, the 6 extensions that Brandon Beane did, you're going to have to rely on a ton of draft picks for 3 or 4 years. I'm not saying you're going to have to hit on all of them, but you're going to have to rely on a lot of young talent, because between the 6 of them, and obviously Josh took up a huge chunk of that. I mean, they doled out $750 million
Yeah.
in contracts, $637 million. So you're going to have to find guys that can do multiple things, like the Jordan Hancocks that can possibly play safety, like, you know, weaving them in and out and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I've heard a lot of good things about Dorian Strong, and he's been really intriguing to me since rookie minicamp, when they showed a lot of stuff for him working out with Maxwell Hairston and those guys that seem to be chumming it up. So it's going to be fun to see. And I guess that's going to be the biggest takeaway for me from tomorrow, is watching those DBs, safeties, corners kind of put their work in and kind of see what we have there. Obviously, it's kind of hard because practice, I feel like, will be more of a telling sign. We don't get to see all the practices because they're going to be going up against 2s and 3s tomorrow. Let's be honest. Like in the third and fourth quarter, we're going to have, you know, fourth string quarterbacks and guys that are wide receivers trying to make the team on special teams or a practice squad. So, but it'll be interesting to see them out there, just kind of look at their mannerisms and stuff like that. So, all right, let's talk about wide receivers. And thank you to everybody that's in the chat. The chat's really starting to get active. I appreciate you guys. Don't forget, if you like the stream, hit that like button. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're watching on YouTube, share. If you're watching on X, drop a comment, share, do all that great stuff. I really appreciate it. We love being in all the algorithms. It helps us out here at the channel a lot. So, wide receivers. Okay, would you say that there are 3 locks, 4 locks, 5 locks? 5?
Yeah.
So Shakir, obviously.
So yeah, I would say mine. I would say it's Shakir, Coleman, Palmer. And then I would say Moore and Samuel.
Okay.
It's really hard for me to not think Curtis Samuel is making this roster.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I battled on X, because I loved the signing last offseason.
Yeah, I remember talking about it. Me and Lance were talking about it on our show, and we needed some sort of playmaker, and we were stoked. We were so excited that it happened.
I thought that he would be an upgraded version of Isaiah McKenzie, like a guy. Yeah. I hate when guys are labeled as gadget guys, but he played with Joe Brady in Carolina, had his most successful season as far as statistically when he was with Joe Brady in Carolina, right? So speed, check. He can run the ball out of the backfield. Like, that's an extra dimension that I don't think that we had. It's confusing to me because he was obviously brought in the beginning of last season when we didn't know what this offense was going to be, because it was Joe Brady's first season, right? So we didn't know if it was going to be 12 personnel, if it was going to be run and gun, if it was going to be all kinds of weird matchup stuff, like all kinds of things. So we kind of got a little bit of it when he took over for Dorsey at the end of the 23 season. We kind of saw he likes to run the ball. Like he doesn't like to, you know, show his hand too often. Like, he's going to do what he wants to do, blah, blah, blah. So the Samuel thing was perfect. And Joe Brady even came out and said, like, if I could have 11 Curtis Samuels on offense, that would be great. Like, that'd be amazing. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I like the versatility. So when he was signed last year, I was like, man, this is what they need. Josh needs a guy that can go deep. He can play in the slot. If they need to get, you know, Shakir some rest, whatever, he can run the ball out of the backfield. It creates mismatches. And then he misses all of camp last year. He seemingly has a nagging toe or foot injury the entire season. But then once we hit the home stretch, we're like, okay, like, he's making some plays. He's not getting a ton of targets, but when he does get targeted, he's making plays. He had that big catch against the Broncos for the touchdown. He had the catch against the Chiefs for the touchdown. Like, he made plays. So we're like, all right, we go into this season. His cap hit is definitely something that they probably don't want to deal with. They had all that dead cap money from Diggs. They probably don't want to deal with another wide receiver that they're going to release or trade because of dead cap. So he comes into this offseason. What happens? He's injured again. And McDermott even said the other day, I think it was on Friday yesterday, he said, like we're running out of time here. Like we're running out of opportunities. It's becoming concerning. So I pose the question to you, because I think that he should be on the roster. And it's not, with me, it's not based off of contract. It's not based off of the $12 million dead cap this year and a $3.5 million dead cap next year. I just think that if you're going to release him, who are you replacing him with?
Yeah. No.
you're replacing him with either KJ Hamler, who we know who he is. If he was going to make the roster, I think it was last year, was his best chance. Tyrell Shavers, which is like the one that everybody's in love with because he makes big plays seemingly in games that when it's not like a super important time of the year, he's making plays against backups. Let's be honest. And I'm not going to knock Tyrell Shavers because he's put in the work. He was on the roster all last year. He's apparently playing really well on special teams. He's doing the gunner position, which I don't know if he did that last year or not. And then you got 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐝. So to me, like if you're going to have him on the roster and he's not going to be active because he's injured, I understand the fans releasing him that aspect. Like, who cares if it's a $10 million or $12 million dead cap because he's not playing anyways? But what's your thoughts on the whole Curtis Samuel thing with the contract and the fans seemingly want him gone? And what's your thoughts on him?
Like you mentioned it, David. You hit the nail on the head. Like, there's no one on this roster, unless the Bills are making a trade for a receiver, which they aren't. There's no one on this roster that you can replace him with that is as talented or as good as Curtis Samuel. I can deal with the injury. I will take the injury risk with keeping him on the roster than cutting him and him going somewhere else and flourishing. Like, he had, look, the turf toe in the beginning of the year last year, not great. That was an inch. It took him a while to get going, but he played well against Kansas City, played well against Denver in the postseason. He is too talented to not have on this roster. And nothing against KJ Hamler. If you watched him in Hard Knocks, seems like a great guy. Like, I would love for KJ Hamler, the person, to make the roster. And I think KJ Hamler could have a role on this team, whatever, right? And that's probably more of a wide receiver 6 conversation, in my opinion.
You know, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know who KJ Hamler reminds me of? Do you ever, at your job, like you have that guy that's really awesome? He's such a nice guy. He's good to everybody, but he's not that great of an employee.
He's like
you're like, I like him. He's
the feel good hire, or the good guy hire, where like he brings up the morale of the team.
Right.
Like, and he's average at his job, right? Yeah, no, 100%. Cool guy, all that fun stuff. 𝐬𝐿𝐶𝐭 shouldn't make the roster. Tyrell Shavers, if he's going to make the roster, he'll be the wide receiver 6. He's also a guy you probably can sneak on the practice squad because not probably a lot of people know who Tyrell Shavers is. The upside with Curtis Samuel and the talent and the difference of type of receiver he can bring to this offense is it's too risky to cut him because of the injury issue. I'm not saying extend him for 5 years. I'm not asking for a long-term contract for Curtis Samuel. I'm betting on the upside. I'm betting on the talent. The injury stuff is annoying. It's frustrating, and I get it for some fans. You are downgrading this wide receiver room if you cut Curtis Samuel. It's just you're losing talent. You're losing a really talented, proven NFL wide receiver that knows the system. That is, when he gets the ball, we saw that the play against Denver in the postseason. When he gets the ball in his hands, he can make guys miss. He's an elite playmaker with the ball in his hands. He needs to stay healthy. I will take the risk of the health over cutting him and having KJ Hamler or 𝐬𝐿𝐶𝐭 or Tyrell Shavers be my wide receiver 5. I just don't want, or I guess, 5, because Moore would be your wide receiver 4. I don't want that. I want Curtis Samuel on this roster, and I get people getting annoyed at the injuries. It's frustrating, and I get it. He is too talented to just cut, in my opinion.
Yeah. What about Elijah Moore? What are you thinking? Because I think fans are starting to get sick of hearing about, well, he didn't play with any quarterbacks in his career. He hasn't had an MVP like Josh Allen, blah, 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 blah. But then we hear about, he missed a couple practices with injury, and then we hear about he has a good day, and then we don't hear anything for a while, so we kind of forget about him. And then obviously he doesn't really do much against the Giants, and that's, like you said when we were talking before the show, that was more about Mitch Trubisky than it was about Elijah Moore. So what's your thoughts on Elijah Moore? I mean, is this something sneaky late signing in the free agent process? A lot of people thinking that Brendan Beane reacted after not going after anybody in the draft, and he was kind of out there, and it was kind of plan B if something couldn't happen in the draft. So what's your thoughts on Elijah Moore overall?
Super talented, right? He was a second-round pick for a receiver. Obviously, like KJ Hamler was a second-round pick for a reason. I think he should be on this roster. right? I'm not saying he's an ultimate lock, but I think the upside and the talent and what he can bring to this offense is good enough to make this roster. And I get it. People are sick of who he's played with, but that's an argument to be had, right? Like if your quarterback's not good and your quarterback's not getting you the ball in the right spot all the time, he played in Cleveland and he played with the Jets. Probably two of the worst 3 situations in the last 5 years when it comes to quarterbacks. It just has been, right? And look, was Elijah Moore the perfect receiver? No. Like Jerry Jeudy had 1,000 yards last year with Cleveland. So obviously it had to do with Elijah Moore at times. I'm not saying it's 100% on the Jets and the Browns. Elijah Moore is definitely at fault for why his career hasn't probably taken off to where what people expected when he was a 2nd-round pick out of Ole Miss. Like he's at fault of course. I do think he's a guy that obviously teams evaluated in the 2nd round. So they saw talent at one point. He's a guy that offers, like Curtis Samuel, a different dimension to this offense. He's a backup to probably 𝐾𝐨𝐽, but he can also line up on the outside. I think he's a type of guy that also should be on this roster, right? Like, I think we're getting too complicated. I think we're getting too clickbaity. I think we're getting too, like, we're overthinking this. I think we're really overthinking this. Look, if the 5 best receivers are Shakir, Coleman, Palmer, Moore, and Samuel in no particular order. Those are the 5 best receivers. The argument would be if they keep 6, who is the 6? I don't see a world where those 5 guys are not getting on this roster. Obviously, Shakir, Coleman, and Palmer are 100% getting on this roster, but the other 2 guys aren't getting on this roster. I think that's people want August like clicks. I like clicks. I like when people like my tweets and view my tweets. It's awesome. It feels great. But Dave, don't you feel like it's a little too like we're trying to stir something up that's not really a stir up? The only thing that's really come out about it is Sean McDermott saying something about it. And that is definitely not a pause for concern when it comes to like Curtis Samuel making the roster. Right. But that is something that you and I should be talking about. Like, what does that mean? Right. Not just making up random stuff to make up stuff, because Moore and Samuel's upside and their talent are better than anything else behind them.
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations where, I mean, Sean McDermott has talked about players like he does, because we know he doesn't single out players like that. That's very rare.
He's sending a message. He said,
it's very rarefied air for Sean McDermott to be saying, "I'm concerned."
100%.
You know what I mean? So I think when he does it, I think he's just deliberately trying, like you said, to send a message.
Well, I think he wants Curtis Samuel on this roster because I think he believes that Curtis Samuel is talented enough and can give them something on offense that maybe other guys. This is not a shot at like KJ Hamler or Deion Kane or Tyrell Schaefer. He's not going to say that about those guys. He's going to say that about Curtis Samuel because he's like, this guy's talented. This guy's a really good NFL player. He can help us win games. Stay freaking healthy. Like, that's what he wants him to do. He's sending a message because he wants him to be on this team. He doesn't want to have to make the decision to cut him because of injury.
Right. 100%. I think too, like you said, I think fans are overcomplicating the Bills offense, because the whole offseason, everybody was talking about the Bills. Should they have a true number 1? Should they just get rid of this whole everybody eats mantra that is going throughout the offense? That's not what this offense is. I feel like the 5 wide receivers that they have are built perfectly for what the offense that Joe Brady is going to run. Now, if Joe Brady so say the Bills are successful this season, whatever, we win the Super Bowl, we make the Super Bowl, whatever, we're just successful, whatever.
Yeah.
And he leaves. Mm-hmm. So the next offensive coordinator might have a completely different scheme. At that point, maybe we talk about what that offense looks like. But we saw an offense that struggled week 4 and week 5, but then figure it out, because Amari Cooper didn't really do much. Let's be honest. Like, when they traded for Amari Cooper, like, I think Brandon Beane reacted because I think he heard a lot of the, like, we can't get open, we can't get separation. Josh is throwing into covered receivers.
And I don't hate that. I don't hate him reacting and trying to get a.
No, I don't either. No, I don't at all. I love that we have a GM that in season will make those moves. Like, I love that. But I think that we're looking at a historically good offense for the Buffalo Bills, scoring both passing and rushing. And I think that's the perfect formula for what Joe Brady's offense is. It's balanced, and it's not flashy. It's not sexy. We don't see Josh Allen putting up 4,800 passing yards and throwing for 48 touchdowns. And I think that fans are used to the Brian Daboll, Ken Dorsey offense where Josh was just letting it rip and probably had a big part of why he was throwing 18, 19 interceptions, because he was passing the ball a lot more, trying to make a lot more plays, trying to do stuff that he didn't need to do. Joe Brady comes in. We have guys that he just wants them to do your job. And even on the first episode of Hard Knocks, Joe Brady even said, look, you're going to run a Joe Brady route. You're probably not going to get the ball. You're going to block the whole time. That's a Joe Brady route. And that's the receivers I think that he's brought in. Do we want guys that if we need a big play or someone to take over a game? Sure. We need that. We saw it on the last drive against the Chiefs. Like Josh just threw up a prayer to a group of guys that were just there hoping that someone would come down with the ball. So I don't know. I think that we as fans, not you and me personally, but I think as a fan base, we overreact to the names on the paper. It's not flashy names. It's not Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. It's not Justin Jefferson. It's not all this stuff because we were spoiled with Stephon Diggs. Let's be honest. Say what you want about how that ended, but when Josh and Diggs were on, they were on. Like 150 plus targets for Diggs 4 years in a row was a formula that didn't do anything different than what the Bills just did this past season with throwing the ball around. Josh kind of seeing the field the way that he wants to see the field, dinking and dunking, stuff at the line of scrimmage, things like that. So I just think the fan base overall needs to just get used to the fact that I don't want to call the offense vanilla, but it's going to be a controlled offense again. We're probably going to see very similar numbers from Josh where he's going to throw easy completions, high percentage completed passes. That's why we don't have those receivers that have the huge average per gain reception stats. We just don't. And I feel like, and this is kind of leading off topic a little bit, but I kind of feel like that's where Josh and Kincaid, that whole relationship kind of went a different direction, because I don't feel like he's getting the target share that everybody thought that he was going to get after year one. We got to remember he was drafted for Ken Dorsey. A lot of people don't think about that. He was drafted for Ken Dorsey. The first part of the season, he was running routes and getting targets in Ken Dorsey's offense. Then Joe Brady comes in and he's like, look, this is what I want to do, with Dalton Kincaid. This is how I want to use him. And so then year two, people are like, well, he should have probably 100 targets and 75 receptions and all these touchdowns. I don't think there's going to be a wide receiver on this roster that's going to break 1,000 yards. If it is, it's probably 𝐾𝐨𝐴, and it's probably going to be very close to 1,000 if it's over.
Because he almost did it last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be more of the same. They replaced, Mac Hollins and Amari Cooper with Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore. They just swapped guys in for the guys that they had. I don't think they have that elite skill set. Like, what's your overall thoughts on what the receiver room was last year, what it is now, and kind of like what you see this offense being in 2025?
I don't say you need a next step from Kincaid. You need a better version of what Dalton Kincaid was year two. You need a lot closer to what year one was for Dalton Kincaid than what year two was. Obviously, he dealt with that injury and all that kind of stuff, but he needs to be better. He needs to be more involved in the offense, just because I think he's a playmaker at the tight end position. And there's not a lot of them in the NFL that are true playmakers, right? Like I do on my other podcast, I rank the top 10 tight ends I do player rankings. I had Kincaid last year in the top 10. I had him like 8 or 9. I didn't have him in the top 10 this year. I think he's a top 10 talent at tight end. But when you have that type of year last year, I would love to put as many Bills players as I can in those lists. But I try not to be as biased as possible. I had to move him outside the top 10 just because he wasn't as productive last year. And you can allude that to Joe Brady, injury, Josh Allen, all that fun stuff, like you said, Dave. But I do think Kincaid needs to take the next step. Keon Coleman's the biggest X factor to me in this wide receiver room. He's been like the talk of the camp, right? Like when it comes to, or one of the talk of the camps when it comes to performing. I love Keon Coleman, and I think he offers a cool, really good skill set to this wide receiver room. He needs to take the next step. I'm not saying he needs to go for 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns, but he needs to be 800 yards and kind of, if you ever look at DK Metcalf's kind of stats, like that's what I think he needs to. maybe not in year 2, but I think that's what he needs to be at his peak of his player, like a DK Metcalf kind of stat line kind of receiver. I'm interested in Joshua Palmer. I really am, because I think he can offer something that maybe they didn't really have last year, some guy that can take the top off the defense. They really didn't have that last year, Dave. That's the only difference when it comes, and we can exclude tight ends for a second. When it comes to the wide receiver room, Shakir's great. We know how good 𝐾𝐨 is. If they think 𝐾𝐭 Coleman can take the next step, that's going to do wonders for him in this offense that already averaged like 30 points per game last year. So I don't know how much better it's supposed to be.
Right.
And if Joshua Palmer can be that legit deep threat, because they really didn't have that last year. Amari Cooper wasn't that. Matt Collins, maybe at times, he had that nice catch before the halftime of the AFC Championship game, like that deep pass across the middle of the field. But he's not a burner. He's not a guy that's going to really take the top off the defense. Joshua Palmer can take the top off the defense. He has end-to-end speed, where I don't think anybody else really on this roster does when in terms of that. Obviously, like KJ Hamler's a speedster. Palmer's important to give the offense another threat, take the top off the defense, open up the underneath with Kincaid and Shakir. Like, Dave, do you think that was an issue last year? If they don't have a guy that could take the top off, when I say an issue, the team scored 30 points per game. So we're nitpicking right now. We're not talking about a team that averaged 18 points a game and finished 25th in scoring offense. We are nitpicking. But when you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you can nitpick, right? When you lost an AFC Championship game by 3 points, you're trying to do every single thing you can to where that score is flipped and you're playing in the Super Bowl next year. I think, does Joshua Palmer offer that and maybe opens it up? Obviously, 𝐾𝐭 Coleman can be the deep threat as well, but he's more of a go up and get it kind of guy. I think having a guy that can take the top off the defense opens it up for a Samuel, Kincaid, and Knox, and Shakir.
I think, honestly, to your point about did we need that last year? Yes. If you watch the Bills' final drive in the AFC Championship game, Spagnuolo said, we're going to blitz because you don't have anybody that's going to make a play downfield. Like, it was apparent that, you know what I mean? The only player outside of Josh that really made plays, there was a nice pass to Hollins, like you said before the half, was James Cook.
Yeah.
And James Cook wasn't even on the field because that's not what the Bills do in the final 3 minutes of a game. They have Ty Johnson out there. That was the recipe that they ran all year. And Joe Brady said it hasn't been broken all year. We're going to try to keep this going. So I'm very intrigued by Joshua Palmer. Once the offseason hit, a lot of the Bills content creating film guys were looking at Joshua Palmer, and I'm like, okay, I know of him. He's typically been choice option 3 or 4 for Justin Herbert up until last year. So let me go and look at a bunch of stuff and see what he's about. He's not going to wow you with anything off the line, but he just gets open. Like, it's just, he's not a burner. He's just a guy that just physically can just get open. And I think that's what the Bills need. They need separation. I put out a stat earlier on our social media, top 25 quarterbacks that threw to wide open receivers. Where would you think Josh Allen ranked?
Say it again. Top 20 quarterbacks.
Top 25 quarterbacks throwing to wide open receivers, which is 5 yards of separation or more.
This is either going to be really good or really bad. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to say 4th.
Nope.
Good.
23rd.
That's not good. So I was right. It was either really good or really bad.
So they based it off of how many completions were completed to wide receivers that had they were wide open.
Yeah, gotcha.
23rd out of, I think it was 40 or 41 quarterbacks.
Do you remember who was first?
Oh, I can find out.
Did you guys tweet it? I'm on Twitter right now. I have it on my. Did you guys tweet it?
It's probably on our Facebook and Instagram. I can find it for you real quick. It's just that's a stat.
Yeah, no.
Guess who was number 1? Lamar Jackson. So that we can, he was number 1.
Because I like the Ravens receiving room, but I think it's better. I don't think it's like an elite receiving room.
Oh, definitely not. It's
I like Zay Flowers. I like Zay Flowers a lot. He's a little bit up and down fantasy wise, definitely when I've had him in fantasy. Mark Andrews, obviously, he's had a great career, probably on the wrong side of his career. I can't even think of who their second receiver off the top of my head is.
Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, that's not a Zay Flowers is probably. Zay Flowers is as good as 𝐾𝐿. I'm not going to start arguing Zay Flowers versus 𝐾𝐿, but that's not a head and shoulders.
When he's healthy, I think Zay Flowers is a little bit better than. And everybody knows I love 𝐾𝐿. Like I think you and me both, since he was drafted, we've been on the 𝐾𝐿 bandwagon.
So excited! I was so excited when I wasn't even watching day 3 when I was on ESPN. I hit refresh and 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 said he was drafted. Was said like he was drafted to the Bills. I was stoked. I was so excited.
You were probably in our group chat. That was what? That was 2022 draft. Was it the 22 draft? Yes. Yeah, you were probably in our group chat. I was like, dude, you guys got to watch this guy. Like,
awesome.
Go watch any of his stuff at Idaho. Like, dude's insane. Like, how he just, for a guy that small that just cannot be tackled, like it's insane, and it translated to the program. So I don't know. Like, I'm hoping that there's a recipe that Brandon Beane looked at with what they had last year, and again, we're nitpicking. This team scored 30 points 8 games in a row, right?
They were second in the league in scoring last year behind the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and and we saw when the Bills wanted to be a team that could come at you, like that 2-game that 2-game stretch where it was the Rams and the Lions. I think Josh accounted for 10 touchdowns or something in those 2 games, and he had astronomical yards passing and stuff like that. They can do that. Like and that was, with the roster that everybody was complaining about last year that had a true number 1. So I think it all depends on what they want to do this year. If they want to do more things with 12 personnel, if they want to try to get Kincaid more involved, but I think it's just going to be more of the same. It's not exciting, but what is exciting is to watch a 12-play 7-minute drive that results in a touchdown. Like that to me, like keep the other team off the field. And if that's going to keep Josh clean, that's going to keep Josh healthy, that's going to have the turnover be as low as they were last year, which hopefully they probably can't duplicate 8 turnovers, but they could probably duplicate.
They had 8 turnovers.
Minimizing.
That's it.
Josh Allen was the only person that had a turnover on offense last year. 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. They had fumbles, but they didn't lose any of them other than Josh lost 2.
Oh boy. Because that's not going to happen again.
And Josh had.
That's really hard not to do that again.
And what I'm saying is, Josh was only sacked 14 times. They only had 20. That's 22. What's that? 22 negative plays. I think historically that's the lowest it's ever been since like the 30s.
Yeah,
22 negative plays.
And to be honest, I think the offense got better talent-wise, because I think if you expect Keon Coleman to take the next step and you expect a fully healthy, involved Dalton Kincaid, and I think Joshua Palmer probably at this point of his career offers more than Matt Collins, maybe not more than Matt Collins, but could offer a different threat than Matt Collins and definitely more than Amari Cooper at this point of his career. I think this offense got better. Year 2 of Ray Davis, you have more. I think Kincaid will be involved more. I think Keon Coleman takes the year 2 leap. I think this offense should be better. And one thing is, people in New England do not like Matt Collins right now. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they're complaining about the dude with the bare feet and
because they think he gets but it was the same thing people were complaining about in Buffalo, that he was going to get too many reps and he was going to get too many targets. It's the same.
But Matt Collins grew on us. Like when the Bills signed him, I'm like, the dude that's played on like 4 teams in like 5 years, like
I was very weary about.
And then when he showed up to practice without shoes on and doing all the weird max hacks and all that stuff he does online,
still pops up on my feed.
But he grew on everybody because he was a vibe on the field, and he was a hell of a player. I'm not saying he's a superstar, but he was a perfect fit for the Bills.
And he was
blue collar guy, like he did everything they asked him to, stuff like that. So,
and I bet you he blocked downfield, like Joe Brady said in that Hard Knocks clip. He probably blocked downfield. Joe Brady probably loved him, and I think they would have loved to bring him back. Obviously, the money just didn't fit. And Joshua Palmer probably offers more upside at receiver.
And I think that's what it came down to, because if you look at what Joshua Palmer, he's younger. I think he's obviously statistically better. He's been better. I think that was the reason why we didn't bring back Matt Collins. Same body type-ish, very close body type, but I think there's an upside with Joshua Palmer. So you touched on Keon for a second, because I feel like the Bills fans are hot and cold on Keon. Obviously, it's based off of just what we're reading on social media. We get some clips of some cool highlights from practice. Obviously, he had a really good day against the Bears. He apparently a couple touchdowns from Josh, things like that. So, to me, and I'll get your take on this in a second, but to me, I don't look at his rookie season as a failure like a lot of fans are. I feel like he was trending in the right direction, and then he got injured. Now, maybe it was a confidence thing towards the end of the season and in the postseason because of the injury, but I feel like he would have had a really good, as compared to other rookie receivers, a really good, statistically sound rookie season. The game against the Titans and against the Seahawks, he looked like he was doing what he wanted. There was the long run against, or long catch and run against the Texans in that game. So it looked like he was trending in the right direction. So maybe another offseason, if he stays healthy, maybe he can be that red zone guy that everybody wants him to be, the contested catch guy. So what's your thoughts? What's a good season for Keon Coleman in year 2? Like, to you, what's successful for him to kind of get all these people kind of off his back going into year 2?
Yeah. So you said he was on a trajectory of having a solid rookie season before the injury. I completely agree. I've been hammering that drum all off season that, look, he finished with 556 yards. That's not glamorous. He plays a couple more games. He's probably pushing 800, right? And if he pushed 800 he had 4 touchdowns, let's say he gets 2 more, 800 with 6 to 7 touchdowns, I think we would have a different vibe. If he had 200 more 250 more, he had 556, let's say 250 more receiving yards, that probably comes with him playing a couple more games. And when he came back, he probably wasn't fully healthy and all that fun stuff and jazz. I think 800 yards would have been a productive season. I put this, so I agree. I think he was on the trajectory of having a really good rookie season. I put this tweet out, year 2 predictions for Keon Coleman, June 25th. I'm looking at it right now. I had 63 receptions, 950 yards, and 9 touchdowns. I'm probably a little high on the yards. If I would say that, he had 4 touchdowns last year in 13 games. I think he can get 9 this year. Maybe higher in the receptions. He did finish with he only finished with 29 on 57 targets. I'm thinking that doubles, or a little, not doubles, but it increases. Probably a little higher in the receptions. It's June. So don't kill me. That's where I had him as a prediction. So
let me ask you this. I ran this exercise with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 a few weeks ago. So would you be upset with Keon Coleman getting 3 receptions per game? Not targets, receptions. Because that's 51 receptions in a year.
It sounds worse when you say 3. It sounds better when you say 51.
Right?
So I guess I would like to probably get the 55, but no, I would not be mad.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just, if any of these guys, I think, get 3 receptions, depending on the yardage, obviously, if it's 3 for 9 or whatever, that's terrible. But 3 receptions for any of these receivers per game is 50 plus, like in a 17-game season, if they play every game. So, like, we have to realistically look at all of these guys, like the targets. I feel like it's going to be a pick your poison every game. It's going to be different. Now, would we like to have Keon be that guy once it's 1st and goal from the 9, or it's 1st and 10 from the 14 inside the red zone, and we're just going to throw balls up to Keon? Of course, yeah, that's what we want. That's why we were sold by Brandon Beane after he traded back twice and then drafted him, when we all know who was sitting there, a guy that plays for the Chargers now that everybody has been clamoring for. Like, we were sold that this was the guy that was going to out physical people. He has the ups. He plays basketball, all this stuff. So that's to me where I want to see, like, him catching cool little passes in practice over the middle and stuff like that is fine. What I want to see is, can you beat a DB and outmuscle a DB or a safety for a go ball when it matters the most? And that's in the 4th quarter. That's in the end of the first half in a 2-minute drill, stuff like that. So I do have a point you brought up, because I think the last things that we saw about Keon Coleman are what we remember, right? He didn't play great in the postseason. I think he only had 3 receptions in the entire postseason. But do you think that if Dalton Kincaid catches that pass, obviously we don't know the rest of what could have happened after. It's a lasting impression, right? The last thing we remember about Dalton Kincaid was him contorting his body in that Hail Mary of a pass, that holy shit throw that Josh somehow, I don't know if Josh Allen completed that pass. It's probably either one or two of the best completed passes he's ever made.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how he got it off, but Kincaid dropped it. So do you feel like that's the lasting impression for Bills fans, and then they just want to pile on with, he didn't do this, he didn't do
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah. I think if he makes that catch, if Kincaid makes that catch, you probably are, and let's say the Bills go on to win that game, and whatever they do in the Super Bowl, right, win or loss. I think you probably still want more production from Dalton Kincaid. You want him to be more reliable target, but I do think you have a different taste in your mouth when it comes to Dalton Kincaid. I have a 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman stat for you. I know we just switched to Dalton Kincaid for a second.
You're good.
So this is like, the next gen stats, and people love next gen stats, or if I tell someone next gen stats, they look at me like I'm speaking a different language to them. So since 2018, this guy tweeted number one wide receiver in yards after the catch above expected per reception. Does that make any sense?
Well, what was his average? Like 19 yards or something like that?
It was high. It's really high because
he had over 500 yards and he didn't even have 30 receptions.
So it was over the years was the number one wide receiver in yards. This guy put out from 2018 to 2024, the number one wide receiver in yards after the catch above expected per reception. So it's yards after the catch above expected per reception. So since 2018. So 2018 was DJ Moore, great receiver. 2019, A.J. Brown. 2020 was Deebo Samuel. 2021 was Deebo Samuel again. That's his prime. 2022 was Jalen Waddle. 2023 again was Deebo Samuel. Last year was 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman.
That's insane.
Rookie season.
That's crazy.
And the guy also tweeted. He said he turns 22 later this week. So it was in May. So he turned 22 in May.
Yeah. They'll always tell you, McDermott and Bean will always, he's young.
That stuff is really hard for me not to think 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman's going to be a good receiver in this National Football League. That stuff is really hard because all those guys are good receivers.
Like the what ifs from last year, just like a lot of things that the Bills are hoping on. And again, you can hope in one hand and what in the other hand and see which one fills up first. But a lot of things that Bills, I think, are counting on is that if we get the same thing, say we just get the same thing, we hope not, but say we just get the same thing from 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman and the same thing from Dalton Kincaid, is this team worse than they were last year? Honestly, if we get 29 receptions and 560 yards from 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman, and I don't have Kincaid's stats in front of me, but we get that.
Do one of those two guys make a play in the AFC Championship game? That's the difference. Know. It's does someone get a stop in the AFC Championship game? Or does someone make a play? That's it. That's what
Joshua Palmer make a play in the AFC Championship
or is 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman and Dalton Kincaid's next step being really good in the postseason? Solid in the regular season, elite or not elite, but have a big game in the postseason, divisional, AFC Championship round, whatever it is.
I think why Bills fans have issues with, and we had Stephon Diggs, he just never did anything in the postseason. We haven't had, since Bean and McDermott have been here, and we've been in the playoffs consistently every year, we haven't had one guy just that Josh could go to. Like, we just haven't had that guy. Like, the game, 2023 divisional game, when Josh threw that 60-yard bomb to Diggs and he dropped it, right? Last year, like, who did Josh have in the passing game to, like Amari Cooper? You know what I mean?
Like for a deep pass, or like Shakir is their underneath short guy. Like, he's reliable. He catches everything.
Right.
But no, I think you need 𝐾𝐨𝐿 Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, and Joshua Palmer to be the guys down the field.
I agree.
Not asking 50 yards down the field, 20-plus yards down the field. Right. They do. Those guys have to be the guys.
I think that's why everybody always goes back to Diggs, because whenever there was a game where it seemed like the Bills' offense was just kind of, they weren't really chugging along like they usually do. It was like the third quarter, you'd be like, oh, there's 3 straight passes to Diggs. All right, here we go. The offense is moving. Like, and he was that. Don't get me wrong, he was that, but he was not that guy in the postseason. And that's what Josh needs. He needs a guy when it's Josh, it's 3 minutes left. If you told me that he was going to have the ball to beat the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, I would be like, yes. How much money do you need me to bet? I will bet all of the money I have that Josh is going to go down there and get a touchdown. But then you start watching what these defenses are doing in those situations to Josh. It's like he can't throw the ball and catch it himself. He can't constantly run because as the season progressed, teams took away the tush push, and we saw it in the Chiefs game, right? So the Chiefs were absolutely going to make Josh throw the ball on 4th down. They were absolutely going to make him throw the ball. Now, obviously, the down and distance, obviously, it was going to happen anyways. But, like, who was he going to make a play to? Like, are we going to throw a screen pass to Shakir, like a bubble screen? Are we going to try to dump down to Ty Johnson? Like, Amari Cooper fell in his route. Like, it's something that needs to be discussed, because if we're going to get over the hump of not just the Kansas City Chiefs, but winning the Super Bowl, we have to have that person that we know that Josh, because I love the everyone eats mantra. I just don't know if, and I'm torn. I don't know if that's a dynamic that will, when you need a game from a guy to beat your guy one-on-one, is it going to happen? That's the only little snippet that I have issues with the everybody eats mantra, because I feel like there's going to, once it gets harder, right? It gets harder each week as you go into the postseason. There was the Broncos, then it got harder against the Ravens, then it got really hard against the Chiefs.
Unless you play the Lions defense in the postseason.
Yeah, it would have got a hell of a lot harder against the Eagles. Difference. So that's just something in the back of my mind. All right, so I guess, I mean, we went almost an hour. I was going to try to keep this right at an hour. So I'm going to ask you this real quick, and you can go just a couple minutes on it. So backup quarterback, who's QB2 in your mind? Who do you want to be QB2? Who should be QB2? What makes the most sense?
Yeah. Shane Bouchel. No, not Shane Bouchel. No offense to Shane Bouchel.
Thanks, Izzy.
Seems like a cool guy. Probably still Mitch Trubisky.
Oh.
I know. It's probably still Mitch Trubisky.
Why? Why is it Mitch Trubisky? You tell me. Lead me down the path to not say Mike White shouldn't be the backup quarterback.
Dave, if you responded to this and gave me a convincing argument of Mike White, I could flip. I really think it's a coin toss. I really do. I would lean, but if I had to choose, if I was the decision maker, which I'm not, I would probably, and look, thank God I'm not the decision maker. I wanted Josh Rosen over Josh Allen, and I'm never afraid to admit that. So I would not be the Bills GM anymore if that was my job. I would still take Mitch. I know Mike White, and Joe Brady said it in Hard Knocks. He has one of the livest arms he's ever seen, which also I think is a crazy statement. No offense to Joe Brady. That is
since Josh Allen's right in his face.
But there's also a ton of great quarterbacks in the National Football League that have crazy arms. That is a crazy statement, but whatever. Hyping up his guy. I think he's the safe option. He's the boring option. He does offer some running ability. Mitch Trubisky does. So it's similar. I'm putting in, I know you can't see, I'm putting in quotes. I'm not saying he runs as good as Josh Allen. No one clip this and DM me that I said he runs as good as Josh Allen, because he does not. And people do, Dave. You know that. People will be like, you said that? No, I didn't say that.
Trust me, I know.
So I think he offers a little bit of running ability. I think he obviously knows the system, all that fun stuff. I still just think he's a little bit more talented than that was loud. A little bit more talented than Mike White. I just think he is. I really do. I don't think it's a crazy difference. If you want to go with the newer, I guess, option and save a couple bucks, you can go Mike White. I think I trust Mitch Trubisky. Maybe I'm falling for the name.
Yeah, and I don't think anything that happened on Saturday against the Giants really changed my perspective either way. There was a nice play by Mitch early on when he kind of avoided a pressure and he kind of rolled out and made a pass. But
I would say one thing, that pass to Shavers, good pass, needs to lead him a little more.
Yeah, there's a reason why he didn't score, because it was underthrown.
There's also a reason why Mitch Trubisky's battling for a backup quarterback role, not a starting quarterback role. That's
to me, it's two things, and it's boring, and people are going to hate this take. But two things: if you go to Spot Track and you look at how much money the Bills have,
that's a good argument.
And then if you watch the Pat McAfee show with Brandon Beane on it, he's looking in the couch cushions for money. Like, he literally was pretending to look in the couch cushions for money because the Bills are broke. Obviously, all these extensions helped a lot. They did push a little bit of money, but the Bills, if they're going to do anything between now and the start of the season, we all know that there's salary cap casualties that nobody's expecting right now, that something that the Bills might need, whether it's a depth piece or whatever. In season transitions, you're always going to have to look at the contracts of players you might want to take on. Can you afford it? Things like that. I mean, I just feel like they need to get cap compliant, because we're in trouble for already next year. So I don't know. It's only $2.5 million.
Yeah.
I believe if Trubisky's not on the roster, if they release him, I just want something different. I think
that's a fair argument. I think
we know what Trubisky is. I don't. Now look, a lot of people are going to come in here and say if Josh is out, we're screwed. Agreed, 100%. If Josh is out, we're screwed. If it's an extended period of time, we're screwed.
So are the Chiefs, so are the Ravens, so are the Eagles, so are the Lions, so are the
31
Rams.
other teams, or we'll say a good chunk of the NFL that have their established franchise quarterback.
Every single Super Bowl contender is screwed if their quarterback is out for an extended period of time.
But if we're talking about a half or a game or a couple drives or something that they need to get a guy to come in to just control the offense, that's where it comes down to. But like I said, I wouldn't be upset if it's Trubisky. I wouldn't be upset if it's Mike White.
Do you, in that scenario, do you feel like if they need 3 drives out of Mitch Trubisky in the third quarter, to say they're at 14 points, Josh Allen comes out, he rolls his egg. I'm knocking on wood. No one can get mad at me.
Don't you put that juju out there.
Josh Allen has to use the bathroom, I don't know, for 15 minutes, whatever, right? And you need 3 drives out of a quarterback. Don't you feel like Mitch Trubisky would be a little safer? I
don't know.
Depending on the game. Like if I need a touchdown, probably Mike White. If I'm up 14, I'm okay with Mitch.
Just to keep the game, just to manage the game. Yeah.
Isn't that what a backup quarterback? I'm playing devil's advocate here. I really am, because I think Mike White can do that as well.
I think either one can do that.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I don't know. And it's probably too much of an in-depth conversation than most people really care for. But I mean, it's
a very hot topic. To be fair, when you're a team like the Bills, where you don't have a ton of roster fights. There's not and that's why people love or hate this Hard Knocks, because people are used to bad teams with a lot of roster turnover, a lot of roster change, a lot of drama. The Bills, outside of the James Cook drama, which was settled pretty freaking quickly in terms of Hard Knocks, it happened the day after the second episode, and they talked about it for about 5 minutes. There's not drama. There's not going to be a lot of drama until people get really sad when they cut 𝐾𝐨𝐽. That's what's going to happen. People can be really sad when they cut 𝐾𝐨𝐽, and I agree that. That's drama. They did that's a drama. The Trubisky White thing is a little bit of drama. So Hard Knocks kind of brought it up, and they talked about it. They made a big deal about it. It's a little bit more drama, in my opinion.
I agree. Well, I guess tomorrow we'll find out. We'll see which guy looks good. It may mean something. It may not.
I would love for them to bring in a young quarterback, like a drafted guy in the 5th or 6th round, like a Will Howard they did, or Cal and McCord, who both did not look great in preseason, but something like that. I feel like that would be a cool change of pace.
I think Bean kind of feels like
he doesn't want to waste a draft pick on that.
Well, and I feel like he was burned with the whole Jake Fromm thing, like, because I think that was his plan. Like, okay, Josh we need to start paying Josh. Like, how do we just get the cheapest option available for a guy we can say we got in the draft? He's a guy that's going to go in the draft. We can have him for 4 years, or we can, if he starts to trend in an upward direction, we can trade him for something and maybe return capital. But I think it's time to where they get a guy that they can, control his contract for a few years on the cheap. And that's because Trubisky, that's one thing about Trubisky. I don't like how much he costs, because he comes with I was a starting quarterback, I was a 1st round draft pick, like, experience. Not saying he was good, but that's part of his repertoire. So I don't know. We'll see. I think that's something this offseason that they definitely need to look into it. The cheaper option, that would be the best option for sure. So, all right, Peter, we hit an hour. I think that's about it for this week's Billsology. Again, I really appreciate you coming on. We're going to try to get Peter on 1st and 5, try to make that a regular thing if it's possible. Yeah. So, Peter, where can people find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, you can find me. You can see if you're watching, if you're listening on podcast, you can find me at Dibiasi Peter. It's right there, or Dibiasi Peter on X. That's kind of where I post everything. In that, I have the link to my podcast. I do a Providence basketball podcast for fun. Obviously, that's a different sport. And I'm at NBC Sports right now, just doing my thing, working in the real world, which is a lot of fun. I've been at NBC Sports for about a year, a little more than a year. So, that's why I went to school, and now I'm at NBC Sports. But you guys can follow me on Twitter at Dibiasi Peter. I tweet a lot. I still tweet about the Bills. So I don't do a podcast about it anymore. Maybe one day I'll get back into doing that, but I do still tweet a ton about the Buffalo Bills.
Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you to everybody that's been watching, everybody that's liked, and everybody that's commented. The chat was blowing up. We have over 400 people in here between X, awesome, Facebook, and YouTube. So I really appreciate you guys. Hopefully tomorrow we get to see some guys that we've talked about on the show. We get some more answers for some more questions we have. If not, we'll talk about it all over again next week. So for everybody, thanks you, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
As always, everybody have a great night and go Bills.
Go Bills.